You've called Reverend Falwell a horrible little person, a vulgar fraud, and a crook. You've also said it's a pity there isn't a hell for him to go to.
Do you want to just spend all your time whimpering about what I've said, or do you have any comments?
Guys, stop. God bless us all. Just stop and let's have a meaningful conversation.
Well,
instead of people talking on top of each other.
Don't invite me on and tell me to keep quiet.
Well, Christopher, why don't you let other people talk for a second, okay?
I need about 20 more years to accomplish what my vision for the university is.
20 years?
I need at least another 20 years, so that's how I'm praying. In the Bible, there's a story of a guy named Hezekiah who was dying, and he asked God for 15 additional years, and he got it. Well, I'm praying the same prayer with an option to renew.
And do you think you'll get it?
I don't know.
Christian Amanpour talking to the Reverend Jerry Falwell several months ago, hoping for more years on his life. Reverend Falwell, of course, died today after a life of faith and controversy. We've heard many voices in the last hour and a half discussing Falwell's life and his legacy. Here on 360, we believe in giving all sides a chance to air their views. You, the viewer, can come to your own conclusions. In a moment, we'll hear from Franklin Graham, the son of Billy Graham, who has fond memories of Jerry Falwell as a friend and a pastor. First, a very different point of view, though, a representation of another side of viewpoint toward Jerry Falwell from author and outspoken atheist Christopher Hitchens. He's the author of God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. I spoke to him earlier in the program. Christopher, I'm not sure if you believe in heaven, but if you do you think Jerry Falwell is in it?
No, and I think it's a pity there isn't a hell for him to go to.
What is it about him that brings up such vitriol?
The empty life of this ugly little charlatan proves only one thing, that you can get away with the most extraordinary offenses to morality and to truth in this country if you'll just get yourself called reverend. Who would, even at your network, have invited on such a little toad to tell us that the attacks of September the 11th were the result of our sinfulness and were God's punishment if they hadn't got some kind of clerical qualification? People like that should be out in the street shouting and hollering with a cardboard sign and selling pencils from a cup. The whole consideration of this horrible little person is offensive to very, very many of us who have some regard for truth and for morality and who think that ethics do not require that lies be told to children by evil old men. That we're not told that people who believe like Falwell will be snatched up into heaven, where I'm glad to see he skipped the rapture, just found on the floor of his office, while the rest of us go to hell. How dare they talk to children like this? How dare they raise money from credulous people on their huckster-like Elmer Gantry radio stations and fly around in private jets as he did, giggling and sniggering all the time at what he was getting away with. Do you get an idea now of what I mean to say?
Yeah, no, I think you're making yourself very clear. I mean,
how dare he say, for example, that the Antichrist is already present amongst us and is an adult male Jew, while all the time fawning on the worst elements in Israel, with his other hand pumping anti-Semitic innuendos into American politics, along with his friends Robertson and Graham.
And yet there are...
encouraging the most extreme theocratic fanatics and maniacs on the West Bank and in Gaza not to give an inch of what he thought of as Holy Land to the people who already live there, undercutting and ruining every Democrat and secularist in the Jewish state in the name of God. He's done us an enormous, enormous disservice by this sort of demagogy.
What do you think it says about America and politics in America that he was so successful in mobilizing huge swaths of the country to come out and vote?
I'm not certain at all that he did deserve this reputation.
You don't think he does?
Well, I'm not certain that he was a mobilizer. He certainly hoped to be one. Well, the fact is that the country suffers to a considerable extent from paying too much by way of compliment to anyone who can describe themselves as a person of faith. Jimmy Swaggart, Ted Haggard, Chaucerian frauds, people who are simply pickpockets, and frauds who prey on the gullible.
Do you believe he believed what he spoke?
And the unwary? Of course not. He woke up every morning, as I say, pinching his chubby little flanks and thinking, I've got away with it again.
You think it was a complete fraud, really?
Yes.
You don't believe that? I mean, in his reading of the Bible, you don't think he was sincere in his I mean, whether you agree or not with his reading the Bible, you don't think he was sincere in what he spoke?
No, I think he was a conscious charlatan and bully and fraud. I think if he read the Bible at all, and I would doubt that he could actually read any long book at all, that he did so only in the most hucksterish, as we say, Bible-pounding way. I'm going to repeat what I said before about the Israeli question. It's very important. Jerry Falwell kept saying to his own crowd, yeah, you've got to like the Jews because they can make more money in 10 minutes than you can make in a lifetime. He was always full, as his friends Robertson and Graham are and were, of anti-Semitic innuendo. Yet, in the most base and hypocritical way, he encouraged the worst elements among Jewry. He got Menachem Begin to give him the Jabotinsky Medal, celebrating an alliance between Christian fundamentalism and Jewish fanaticism that has ruined the chances for peace in the Middle East. Lots of people are going to die and are already leading miserable lives because of the nonsense preached by this man.
The book is God is Not Great. Christopher Hitchens, appreciate you being on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Christopher Hitchens, his comments have provoked a great deal of email, positive and negative, we should say. We'll read some of your comments ahead. On the radar tonight, your reaction to Jerry Falwell's passing and our coverage of it. Some of you taking issue with our interview with outspoken atheist Christopher Hitchens. Lindsay in Indianapolis writes us, I hope you'll apologize to America for allowing someone on your show that would call this man a toad, as Mr. Hitchens said, or Hitcherson as she's called him. What would people think if I came on national television calling Ellen DeGeneres a lesbian toad? Lindsay, I'm not sure what Ellen DeGeneres has to do with it, but we believe in presenting multiple points of view on 360. You seem to assume that I agree with all the guests that I have on. I don't, but I don't think that really matters. What I think doesn't really matter. We invite people on if they have legitimate points of view. Falwell was certainly a divisive figure, and we thought it important to hear why. Sue, on the other hand, in San Jose, says, thank God AC360 included Mr. Christopher Hitchens on the show tonight. Mr. Hitchens' comments about Falwell were stunning and remarkable and refreshing. Linda in Boulder, Colorado writes, may he rest in peace, and people can refrain from disparaging him now that he's passed. His faith was great, even if his social views were misguided. On the other hand, Chaz in Virginia Beach says, I've met Dr. Falwell. He was decent, passionate, and engaging. He had the strongest belief in his convictions of anyone I've seen, and I liked him very much.
Jerry Falwell claimed events like September 11th were God's punishment. There is no evidence for that. Those attacks are explained by human actions, not divine causes. Falwell built influence through media and donations, a model tied to emotional messaging and fear about heaven and hell. That raises questions about motive and truth. Even the Bible warns about false prophets. Matthew 7:15 says, to beware of those who appear righteous but mislead others. From an atheist or agnostic view, the issue is simple. Religious titles can protect people from scrutiny. Claims about God, politics, and morality should be tested the same way as any other claim, with evidence.
To move on to the Reverend Jerry Falwell's funeral. You won't believe what one of my next guests is saying about his legacy.
It shows how much vulgarity and fraud and bigotry you can get away with on mainstream airwaves in this country as long as you have the word reverend in front of your name.
Atheist Christopher Hitchens takes on Jerry Falwell's legacy, as well as one of the Reverend's admirers, next. He opened tonight the controversy over the legacy of the Reverend Jerry Falwell. Falwell died last week of heart trouble at the age of 73. At his funeral today, thousands of mourners packed the Virginia church Falwell founded 50 years ago, the church he built into an evangelical empire. Falwell was a polarizing figure in American politics for decades, thanks to the Moral Majority, the organization he founded to promote his vision of American values. At the service today, the Reverend Franklin Graham said those values are what made him controversial.
He believed in the inerrancy of Scripture. That's controversial. He believed in the sanctity of life, was against abortion. That's controversial. He believed in the family. And who would have ever thought that would be controversial? He believed in marriage was the union between a man and a woman. He believed that the moral decay weakened the fabric of America. That's controversial.
Joining me now, to debate Falwell's legacy, writer Christopher Hitchens, who says Falwell was a fraud, Hitchens' latest book is God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. Also with me, someone who sees Falwell's legacy much differently, writer Eric Metaxas, author of Everything Else You Always Wanted to Know About God, but Were Afraid to Ask. Gentlemen, glad to have you both. Christopher, let me start with you. Falwell was controversial. You heard the Reverend Graham say it right there. Isn't that a good thing? You're controversial. It gets people thinking and discussing and debating.
To be sure, and I wouldn't be on this show if you weren't giving me the opportunity to be rude about a man on the day he's buried.
You've called Reverend Falwell a horrible little person, a vulgar fraud, and a crook. You've also said it's a pity there isn't a hell for him to go to.
Do you want to just spend all your time whimpering about what I've said, or do you have any comments?
Whimpering. No, I'm curious why you think he was such an idiot. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of people that followed him and believed in him. Are you saying that everybody that believed in him?
That's been true. That's been true of every fraud in history. I'll tell you why I think so. First, he believed in the rapture, in the idea that people like him were going to be snatched up, especially by Jesus, leaving the rest of us to die in the cars.
But hold on. Didn't you say that you don't think he believed in those things?
He believed in creation. He believed in creationism.
You said he didn't believe in those things.
He believed that the Antichrist was a Jewish male who was already amongst us.
Excuse me, the Christ was also a Jewish male. The Christ was a Jewish male. If you believe he existed, I'm not sure that you do. But the point is that I get confused.
I'm not sure that he did, no.
Pardon? Well, you're not sure he did. But the point is to say something like that. You're being merely incendiary, because the other day you said you didn't believe that.
Wine again.
Well, you said whimper earlier. You have to pick your pejorative verb. But the point is that you can't have it both ways. And I'm not trying to be incendiary, but I'm trying to figure out what your actual criticism is. Because you can't say that somebody believed these things and that's why he's a crackpot and an idiot, and then say that he only was in it for the money. Because that's what you were saying the other day.
He didn't say only for the money, but he used it.
You said he didn't believe these things.
He did very well out of it. I can't be sure. He may have been both a hypocrite and a bigot.
Eric, what does he leave behind?
Division, obviously, in some ways. I mean, I think his legacy is certainly mixed. The things that Falwell believed in as a Christian are the things that any Christian believes in, and I think he in some ways very helpfully brought people who felt that they were out of the political process into the political process, and I think in some ways that was wonderful. I think it also contributed to a misunderstanding about what faith is, and I think that a lot of people confuse having faith as a Christian or a Jew particularly with morality.
I think that if you want to an encapsulation of his legacy, it shows how much vulgarity and fraud and bigotry you can get away with on mainstream airwaves in this country as long as you have the word reverend in front of your name.
You don't think Falwell you don't think Falwell was genuine at all in any way, shape, or form?
No, I think he was a genuine bigot, but I also think it's quite compatible with him being a huckster, a fundraiser, a friend of the Jim and Tammy Bakers, for example, and other rip-off artists, and a fraud. Yeah, he was amply both of those things.
But the things that you said only hours after he'd been pronounced dead, I thought were very unhelpful and exceedingly...
I said them all the time he was alive.
Well,
I said them every day he was alive
but that's
as well.
the point.
Final thought.
I think that, again, here's the point, at least, is that if you have legitimate criticisms, and of course you do, I would be the first to say that you do, you don't help your argument by saying them in the way that you did.
Oh, I'll be the judge of that. Leave that to me, Mr. Metaxas. I'll make my own case.
Why?
Thanks.
Eric
I didn't ask your advice, and I really don't think I'd profit from it.
Here I am to offer it.
We must leave it there. I appreciate you both and the debate. Thank you.
Anytime.
Falwell wasn't just a preacher. He built power. He turned religion into politics through the moral majority, pushing laws and ideas based on belief, not evidence. That affects real people. Look at the claims. Creationism rejects evolution, even though evolution is backed by genetics, fossils, and decades of research. The idea of a rapture, or labeling groups as evil, isn't science. It's fear-based thinking. Even the Bible contradicts this kind of behavior. In Matthew 6:5, it warns against public displays of religion for attention and status. Yet figures like Falwell built massive platforms, influence, and wealth. Hitchens' point goes further here. When religion enters politics, It stops being personal belief and starts shaping society. Laws, education, and rights get influenced by ideas that can't be tested or proven.
From North Carolina.
Yes, Mr. Hitchens, I'd like to ask you what you think of, well, in this country, I guess, in particular, but you're experienced all throughout the world in religious fundamentalism, fanaticism, or whatever, but what do you think is the level of hypocrisy between those who espouse religion and fundamentalism or whatever, and what you think they really do believe as such and feel it within their spirit? And I just wondered if you could comment on that in this country and, you know, perhaps throughout the world even.
Yes, that's a very interesting question, and one has to ask it all the time, and it's been lent some point recently by the revelation of Mother Teresa's loss of it may not be correct to say exactly total loss of faith, but great loss of conviction, of certainty in her faith. With someone like, say, Billy Graham, I think one can see all the symptoms of a self-conscious fraud. I mean, someone who doesn't believe any of this at all, but is a reasonably good businessman. I have a reason for thinking that, apart from the terrible appearance that he gives in public, I mean, the appallingly phony appearance, I mean to say. There was a Canadian Billy Graham, a contemporary of his, who north of the border was that crusade embodied, called James Templeton, who wrote a memoir about the point when he himself realized that what he was talking was complete nonsense, and no sensible person could believe it. And he went to Billy Graham and said, well, look, here's what's happened to me. Can you really go on saying this stuff? And Graham basically says, it's too late to stop now. And lots of people expect it of me, and, you know, we're in business. And that's what I think is the case with a surprisingly large amount of it. But I'm not, I don't want to sound vulgar about it. I mean, I know a lot of people to whom religion means everything or a very great deal, and who don't try to profit from it and don't stand to profit from it either. So I don't reduce everything to a racket, but I think that racketeering is and always has been an important part of religion. Some religions simply are rackets. Scientology, for example, or Mormonism. It's nothing more than the record of a successful con job. But the spiritual life can't be entirely reduced to that, and here's the problem. When you ask, do people really believe that? There can't be an answer to it, because they don't know any more than you do whether there was a virgin birth or a resurrection. If they say, I believe it, they're still believing in something that they have to know very probably didn't take place. So what are they asking us to believe? They're asking us to believe their propensity to faith, in other words, to take something on faith without argument or evidence. Well, if somebody wants me to believe that of them, that they will do that, then I will, but I feel that they're arguing against themselves and probably doing themselves an injustice.
You think Billy Graham's an evil man?
Yes, disgustingly evil man. I'll tell you again why I say that, choosing one out of a number of possible answers. I think that anti-Jewish prejudice is an unfailing sign of a sick and disordered person. There are some kinds of prejudice. For example, I don't terrifically like people from Yorkshire, as it happens. I don't know why. I don't. But I don't think that convicts me of anything really insanitary. I probably would be a better person if I liked more people from Yorkshire. Anti-Semitism isn't like that. It's a horrible, conspiratorial, pseudo-intellectual, mean-spirited, eventually lethal piece of bigotry. You read the stuff that Graham's been found saying to Richard Nixon on tape. You can get it from the Nixon Library now, on the Jewish question. Once you've got over the revelation, which wasn't much of a revelation to me, of what a squalid little bigot President Nixon was, I guessed I knew that, you find that he's outmatched by the way that Billy Graham talks. He doesn't mind, he does that in private and harbours that stuff in private, and then goes out and rakes in the cash for preaching brotherhood and compassion. It's enough to make you sick.
Who's an American president that you admire?
And there's no president who, however deserving of condemnation, who can't get Billy Graham to come to his side at just the point he is about ready to, or should be about ready to be either impeached or to make some kind of public apology or change of policy. No, this sort of valet, this religious valet, is always at their hand, saying, no, I can make this look good for you. I can I can be your religious PR man, power worshipper, cronyism, bigotry. It's a very unattractive combination. And then going around spouting lies to young people for a living, lying to the young for a living. What a horrible career. I gather it's soon to be over. I certainly hope so.
Religious leaders ask people to accept things like virgin birth or resurrection with no evidence, while knowing those claims can't be tested or verified. That's not knowledge. That's asking people to believe without proof. Even insiders have admitted this problem. A former evangelist, Charles Templeton, walked away after realizing these claims didn't hold up under basic questioning. That shows doubt isn't rare. It's often hidden. Then there's the hypocrisy. Public messages talk about love and compassion, while private records tell a different story. Conversations from political archives show religious leaders expressing prejudice behind closed doors while preaching unity in public. That gap matters. And look at the pattern. Religion aligns itself with power. Presidents, politicians, influence. It's not about truth, it's about access and control. Hitchens calls this out directly. Religion often protects authority, not morality.
Let's bring a little light to this, instead of all heat, let's bring a little light to this conversation
Light
and
comes
talk
from
about
heat.
trends.
Light only comes from heat.
Okay, thank you so much. Christopher, hold on. Guys, stop. God bless us all. Just stop and let's have a meaningful conversation.
Well, don't invite
instead
me
of
on and tell
people
me to
talking
keep,
on top of each other.
Don't invite me on and tell me to keep quiet.
Well,
Don't
Christopher, why don't you let other people talk for a second, okay?
You invited me.
Okay, so anyway, Matt.
Listen to yours.
Okay, well, you know what, Christopher, I'll never make that mistake again.
Fair enough.
Matt, here's the question, okay? Merry Christmas and good night.
Your reaction is seeing yourself.
I think I left that one. I think I actually walked out of that one. I thought, look, either have me on, ask my view, or don't. But don't tell me what to say. Don't tell me what you think all the time. I actually corrected Mr. Scarborough. I think I improved him slightly as a host and as a talk show person. He made an obvious mistake. And you know, everyone gives themselves permission to behave absurdly when religion is mentioned. And he's just another one of those who do. By the way, when are we going to mention my new paperback version of my anti-God book? When are you going to put the title and everything on the screen? When are we going to say find bookstores everywhere?
We'll do it. We'll do it shortly. We'll get closer to your book on this clip with Anderson Cooper when you appeared on there and talked about the death of Jerry Falwell. I don't know if you remember this or not.
I remember the event quite well, yeah.
Here it is.
Christopher, I'm not sure if you believe in heaven, but if you do you think Jerry Falwell is in it?
No, and I think it's a pity there isn't a hell for him to go to.
What is it about him that brings up such vitriol?
The empty life of this ugly little charlatan proves only one thing, that you can get away with the most extraordinary offenses to morality and to truth in this country if you'll just get yourself called reverend. Who would, even at your network, have invited on such a little toad to tell us that the attacks of September the 11th were the result of our sinfulness and were God's punishment if they hadn't got some kind of clerical qualification? People like that should be out in the street shouting and hollering with a cardboard sign and selling pencils from a cup. I don't know why I was so lenient on the little rat bag. He said, he came on the television while the downtown Manhattan was still smoldering. There were cell phones screeching under the rubble, and people still alive. And he said, this is because we allowed divorce and homosexuality. The hell with him. I went on to say is that if he could have been given an enema, he could have been buried in a matchbox. And that's what I didn't get time to say on Mr. Cooper, but I got time to say later on. That's what I meant to say.
How much of what you say is calculated?
None. I mean, it's meant, in the sense of being, it's not done for effect, if that's what you mean.
Well, I mean, not
I don't say anything. No, it's a very good question. I ask myself a lot of the time because I'm often on the telly and on the radio, and I often have a book to sell, and I don't want to suspect myself of just doing things for effect. If I ever go further than I mean to, and I say something that is cheap or overstated, I always will try and come back and correct myself and say, okay, maybe that was. I don't do things just for you're pursing your lips, Mr.
No, I actually wanted to...
I like to find a gifted phrase if I can and try and make it stick, make it memorable.
I really wanted to ask you, though, when there was an occasion where you and someone else really were, the word mad doesn't describe it, but you're furious with one another, or you really had a confrontation that was personal and serious and deep.
On the air,
with anybody, anyway, just in life. I mean, people that watch television never know how much of it's a gimmick.
Exactly, and that's where one wants to suspect one's own motives. This will seem odd, but I'll answer it like this. I'm reviewing a book at present of essays by Henry Fairley. Perhaps you remember him. Quite good English-born essayist, often in the New Republic, especially in the 80s, 90s. He was a great writer and a great polemicist, but I used to think that sometimes he would feign his anger. He would think, I need to get a piece, I need to get paid, I need to get an article done. He would invent a subject to be annoyed about, and I just think that will always show. So I suppose I have to submit myself in answering your question, not to my own verdict that you're inviting, but to the safekeeping of the good taste of the audience. I mean, if people who read me and watch me, if they think I'm doing this because I just want to make a splash, well, they're entitled to think that, and I would obviously suffer a decline in respect. I don't think, in fact, I give off the impression that I do this for effect.
But back to the other part of the question, though, what's the biggest, most serious feud you've had with any individual? And that was real. I mean, that they weren't phony and you weren't phony, and it was...
I guess it would be with Henry Kissinger and his defenders, what I can call to mind of the recent past. I wrote a book saying that I thought he should be arrested and put on trial, and that if he was, he'd be convicted for crimes against humanity and for war crimes. And he made a very crude reply to me on television, in point of fact, saying that I was everything from a Holocaust denier to a person who trashed Jackie Kennedy. In fact, on both those charges, as you know, I can't be indicted, but I eventually got his lawyers to issue an apology about this, and I took it very seriously indeed, and I hate him, and I hate the toadies in the press and in the academy and in publishing who've helped to smooth his path.
You hate him?
Hate them. Hate him. Yeah.
And what's the...
I feel it's an insult that such a person is around, is deferred to, is consulted, is treated with politeness in the academy and by our profession and in the publishing industry. I've said all that.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I met him 2 or 3 times. He's never been induced to speak to me, but he's sometimes had to be in the same room with evident ill grace. I think, no, that's probably been for me the most long-lasting and deep-going and most hate-based relationship I've had with anybody.
You asked about this book. We did not actually ask you on the program to talk about this book.
I know you didn't, but I'm not going to let you get away.
That's fine. No, it's how many copies of hardback did you sell?
A lot, about 350,000.
And the title is God is Not Great is now in paperback. And what kind of sales do you expect of this?
Oh, I would hope even larger, because the subject has become even more acute than when I didn't broach it. I mean, it broached itself. The battle between civilization and civil society and theocracy is becoming every day much more intense and much more urgent. And the number of people who will come now to a public debate on this, I go to do this kind of debate about twice a week now, is growing all the time. I mean, the audience for the argument is enormous.
Why?
Well, I think for 2 reasons. One is religion is the most interesting subject of all. I mean, if you have a friend or an acquaintance, you know an awful lot about them, depending on whether they attribute their presence in the studio to the laws of biology, the laws of nature, the laws of evolution by natural selection, or whether they think that they're here because of a divine plan. It's a big difference, philosophically, morally. And so going into this means you raise all the most interesting, all the most fundamental, basic questions. That's the first thing. So it's never a boring discussion. And second, or it shouldn't be, and the second is that at the moment, if you open the newspaper and see how the parties of God are behaving around the world, everywhere from Russia to Iran to even certain parts of the United States where they think they ought to influence the education system, that people are, I think, becoming fed up with being pushed around by ordinary mammals who think that they are better than us because they have God on their side. Enough with this. It's very insulting, it's very threatening, it's very stupid, and it's becoming, and now we have the chance that apocalyptic weaponry will fall into the hands of messianic states or organizations, Armageddon-type forces. Clear and present danger.
Watch what happens when religion gets challenged. Suddenly, the conversation gets shut down. People say, be respectful, calm down, instead of answering the argument. That's the shield. Big claims get made, but they don't want them tested. Hitchens points out the core problem. Once religion enters the room, logic gets dropped. Evidence stops mattering. That's not how truth works. Meanwhile, science explains life through biology and evolution. Tested, proven, repeatable. Religion offers belief without proof and asks people to accept it anyway. Now it's pushing into schools, politics, and global power. That's where it becomes dangerous. When belief starts shaping laws and education without evidence, it's no longer personal, it's control, and it can't justify itself.
New subway ads in New York City have renewed the debate in America about religion and God. So I thought this would be a perfect time to bring in the stars of Collision, a new documentary on religion and atheism. Christopher Hitchens, self-proclaimed anti-theist and author of God Is Not Great, and Pastor Douglas Wilson, evangelical and author. Welcome to the show. I saw the movie, and I really enjoyed the movie very much. It's very, very interesting. But I don't want you two to just rehash the debates, okay?
Okay, we won't.
All right, because I want you to make me understand where you're at, and people who are watching the show. Because, you know, so, okay, let's start with you. Can you give me, just in a nutshell, Pastor, a case for God?
Okay.
That God exists.
One of the things I would want to do is ask about where your starting point is. Who has the burden of proof? So does a Ford automobile have the burden of proof of demonstrating that there was a Henry Ford or that there wasn't? Who has the burden of proof? And a lot of this debate is actually scrambling for the high ground of who has to do the proving, who has to do the maintaining, who carries the burden of proof. Now, for
and who do you think carries the burden?
I believe the one who denies the self-evident fact that God exists and created the world, I think that is the person who has the burden of proof.
You say it's self-evident?
Yes, self-evident to those
who believe.
Those who believe. Those who don't believe, you know, if you watch this movie, Collision, it's sort of like watching diving competitions in the Olympics. The Romanian judge comes up with a completely different score, you know, 2 points, 10 points. So this is the sort of debate where atheists go to it and they think Christopher carried the day, and believers go to the debate and they think that the Christian guy did great.
There may not be a solution to this,
well, no, I think there is one. I mean, and I can't avail myself of the almost beautiful circularity of Pastor Wilson's argument. And I wouldn't want to shirk any burden of proof or disproof, but it does seem to me that if someone says, if I don't agree with them, I might be condemned to eternal punishment, and that snakes talk, virgins bear children, and dead men walk, that extraordinary claims do require extraordinary evidence. What atheists say is not that there is no God. We couldn't possibly prove that. We say there's never been any evidence, and there's never been a convincing philosophical argument that there is such an entity. In fact, we say there is no supernatural dimension. The natural world is much more wonderful.
But you don't, Pastor, you don't really believe that snakes talk and that Noah had all those animals on the boat, do you?
Yeah, I believe the Bible. I'm a Christian, so I believe the Bible.
It sounds like you're too intelligent to really believe that literally. I understand your faith, but that all those animals were on the boat? Well, come on.
Come on. We're animals, and we
That's a fact. We're primates.
And we talk.
Yeah.
By the way, that's an advance on where Presbyterianism used to be. They used to say we weren't primates. Now we know. Now everyone agrees we are. Now everyone agrees we evolved. Now everyone agrees that the cosmos is created by an explosion, probably without us in mind. We're very likely not the object for divine design.
Okay.
It might be more modest to think that we aren't.
All right.
One of the things I would want to maintain is that Christians aren't going to make any headway by trying to split the difference between faith and unbelief. If you have unbelief and faith, and you split the difference, you just get a muddled form of faith or a muddled form of unbelief. I'm not interested in trying to dilute the Bible to make it acceptable to people.
Yeah.
So if I'm a Christian, then I do what Jesus says, believe what he taught, and that sort of thing. That's what a Christian should do.
What about this idea of Jesus, Christopher? You don't buy it at all, I take it.
Well, I don't think he was the Son of God.
You don't?
No, I don't think his mother was. I don't think his mother was a virgin, and I don't think he died and was resurrected or revived or resuscitated.
None of that.
None of that. And even if he was, by the way, any of those things, he would only have that in common: virginal birth, miraculous circumstances, mysterious death, with many, many other mythological figures. It wouldn't prove, even if it could be proved, wouldn't prove his doctrines were true or moral or ethical, which I don't think they are.
Does it surprise you to know that Einstein probably believed in God? That's pretty surprising.
No, I absolutely know that the contrary is true.
Well,
Einstein wrote very, very clearly he was a pantheist, or possibly a deist. He did not believe in a personal God, a God of religion. He didn't believe in a God who could intervene in human affairs, would answer prayers, would take side in a war, would care what you ate, or who you had sex with.
There's a certain self-absorption in the idea that the sky god is watching me, particularly do my show right now. Right. There's something strange about that. Do you believe that? Do you think he's watching you specifically right now?
Yeah, Jesus said God numbers the hairs on our head. It's not just...
So does Google.
Yes, and is there self-absorption in that?
Yeah.
So here's the fundamental issue. Of course, you can believe in an omniscient God and believe in it in a way that flatters yourself. There have been all kinds of believers who take the doctrine that God knows all things and has the hairs of your head numbered, and they do it in a self-flattering way, a self-absorbed way. Yes, that does happen. But it's also something that can humble you if you think about it correctly. It helps put everything in perspective.
Okay.
It makes you too humble.
Okay,
it makes you into a servant. It makes you say, I'm just a plaything of God's will.
Well, let's talk about the Ten Commandments, for example.
Right.
Do we really need the Ten Commandments to be good people? I mean, I know not to murder somebody. I didn't need to be raised Catholic, even though I was, to know that.
Right. Part of the problem that we come up against is that we have been inculcated in the Ten Commandments, the tenets of the Ten Commandments for many centuries, and then we kick the ladder away. We've climbed up to this height, kick the ladder away, and say, look how high we are. Well, I don't think it is self-evident that you shouldn't murder or commit adultery.
What did people do before the Ten Commandments? They didn't murder and kill otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Well, no, look at the crime rates. If sin disappeared overnight, if somebody waved a magic wand and sin disappeared, our economy would collapse. We are...
What do you say to that, Chris?
That doesn't maybe say anything. I have some tougher stuff to say. I mean,
go ahead.
Well, first, the story isn't true. I mean, the wandering in the desert, the exile. That's the Jewish version of the Christian mythology. It's worse than the talking snakes. The Analects of Confucius, written long before, say to people what the golden rule is. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself. The first 3 or 4 commandments are all saying you must fear someone you love, a heavenly dictator. They're not moral at all. Then there are 2 or 3 that are self-evident. Don't murder rather, don't steal, and don't commit perjury. And then the others are putting women on the level of beasts and saying they're among the chattels of your neighbor you mustn't covet. It's a Bronze Age, tribal, agricultural,
so the Ten Commandments were
code.
Like in reruns, really.
Yeah. Well, let's go at this from another angle. Take the Code of Hammurabi and the Analects of Confucius and the Ten Commandments.
Eye for eye, tooth for tooth.
Well, eye for eye, tooth for tooth is lex talionis was given because it used to be before that a life for an eye, a life for a tooth. All right, strict justice was imposed to keep these things from escalating out of control. But the reason you have all these codes enforced by armies and police departments and that sort of thing is because people don't obey them naturally and spontaneously.
What do you say to that, Chris?
For example, there's no commandment against genocide. There's no commandment against slavery, very common at the time, and no commandment saying parents should respect and be nice to their children. Why is this? Because in the next chapter, the so-called children of this terrifying God who exacts compulsory love are going to be ordered to commit genocide against the Amalekites and the Midianites and the Moabites. They're going to be ordered to enslave them, and they're going to be ordered to kill all their children in the name of God.
That's not very
don't
nice.
have a commandment.
That's not very Christian.
Yes, so this is completely relativistic.
Yeah. By the way, I read somewhere where I saw it in the it's a wonderful film, by the way, which I'll keep pushing for you.
Good for you.
That you were spanked, and
yes,
that's not very nice to spank a child. Why do you think that's a Christian thing to do?
I was the kind of child that needed it.
Oh, all kids say that, and they're so wrong to spank a child, and it's so not Christian.
This is where the argument really breaks down. They call God self-evident, but that's not proof. That's just belief repeating itself. If something is real, you should be able to show evidence, not shift the burden onto everyone else. Hitchens cuts straight to it. If you're claiming virgin births, resurrections, or talking snakes, the burden is on you. And there's zero scientific evidence for any of it. Even history doesn't back it up. Moral systems existed long before the Bible. Confucius taught the Golden Rule centuries earlier. People knew right from wrong without religion. Then look at the Ten Commandments. There's nothing about slavery, nothing about genocide, nothing about protecting children. Instead, parts of the Bible actually describe violence ordered by God.
My guest tonight is a world-class skeptic who has wounded more sacred cows than a Bombay cab driver. His new book is titled No One Left to Lie To, The Triangulations of William Jefferson Clinton. Please welcome Vanity Fair contributing editor Christopher Hitchens. Christopher.
My dear fellow.
How are you, sir? You're over in that one.
I've got my urine sample.
What do you got there? You got the scotch, you got the Altoids, and the ciggy.
I have a position in society to keep up, and I brought the urine sample to prove it.
Now, when I watch you on, well, I've seen you on Matthews and a few others. I always think you're like the smartest guy I've ever seen on TV, and I think to some extent.
Sweet of you to say so.
Well, I also
love your work also.
I think that
I've always liked your Charles Manson giggle, I must say. That's what brought me to this studio.
Well, you know, I've made a career off that Manson giggle, but you make a career off of lacerating things that some people won't even go near. And I'm wondering, do you feel safer doing it because while you live in America, I don't know if you've been naturalized, but you're a Brit, obviously. And
how can you tell?
Well, I mean, do you feel safer, like, because I think if some American guys cranked up some of the sentiments you have, they would be, you know, the villagers would be after him with torches.
Is this Mother Teresa we're on about here? Or
Well,
the Dalai
yeah,
Lama?
I mean, the Mother Teresa thing just amazed me, and I when you read it, it's so well put together, and yet I can't follow you on the sentiment. I mean, well, explain to the people your general feelings about Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa is a bat from hell. Was a bat from hell. I correct myself, was a bat. Mother Teresa believed that contraception was the moral equivalent of abortion, and abortion was the moral equivalent of murder. Mother Teresa took heaps of money from the Duvalier family in Haiti, who probably gave the poor as hard a time as the poor have ever got, even the poorest of the poor. Heaps of money from them and justified their regime. She took a heap of money from Charles Keating of the Lincoln Savings and Loan of California, who you're still paying for. It's bad debts. And a private jet in return for saying that he was a great guy and a friend of
Listen, with all
Jesus
the
Christ.
assholes getting on Learjets in this world, doesn't she deserve one? I mean, for Christ's sake, I see people getting off Learjets left and right who don't deserve it. I mean, this woman was living with...
We're talking about taking a flying fuck, right? I mean, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think she is... the other people you see getting on and off these jets advertise the fact that they're scumbags and grinders of the faces of the poor. She does it by saying, I'm doing this to do the poor a favor. And then she says, poverty is a gift from God. Suffering is a gift from God. Leprosy is a gift from God. The death of your child is because God loves the child and expects people to sit still for it. Well, not this reviewer. The worst, the bad moment, I wanted to call, you mentioned this animal earlier, I wanted to call my book about her sacred cow, but I decided to call it the missionary position instead because I thought sacred cow might be offensive to some people. But
that was a pretty good stab in the dark there, Chris.
I hate to, but the documentary was called, Over My Wishes, was called Hell's Angel, which I thought was a bad title. The Hell's Angels came to the screening with a lawyer's letter and said I had violated their copyright. They formed up in a mob and said, you've violated our trademark. So now it's really true. Everyone in this country has a fucking lawyer.
The Hells Angels have a lawyer.
Yeah. So now I'm on to the Dalai Lama, which is much easier. That's fishing about.
Oh, wait, I can't let you go on Mother Teresa for a second. Even if you question, I mean, the woman, would you ever consider doing that with your life? Who would? That's why she's sainted before she's already sainted. Who was out there and living with the dregs, the people nobody else wanted?
No, I've been in Bosnia. And shall we be serious for a second?
Yes, I want to be serious because
Okay, I've been in Bosnia. I've been in Albania recently. I've been in Zimbabwe and many other hellish spots, and I've met probably many people here have met, hundreds of people who spend their entire lives really working for the good of others, and just for that. They don't proselytize. They don't say we're doing this for the church or for our ideology or to prove that poverty is a gift from God and you should accept it, or to campaign against divorce and abortion and contraception, as she openly did. She said that was her motive. She told me so herself in Calcutta. She said, I do this to disprove the secular idea that people can have divorce and immoral lives. We do it for this purpose. That qualifies it a little, don't you think?
Well, I'm just wondering if you can get this wound up about that.
And as a matter of fact, as you point out, she was more often seen clambering on a Learjet to go and see Mr. Duvalier in Haiti and grovel to him, or Mr. Keating to go grovel to him, and being told all this time she's on the fast track for sainthood, and then going to photo op with Nancy Reagan. No, I don't think so. She wasn't in Calcutta.
Wait, how did Nancy Reagan get into there? Where'd that come from?
It was one of her photo ops.
What's wrong with that?
With Nancy Reagan? Well, I think they were absolute twin souls. But no one says Nancy Reagan does it for the love of humanity. Nancy Reagan does it for the photo op. It was very hard to catch Mother Teresa in Calcutta. If you blinked, you missed her.
Man, you are the Rosetta Stone of skepticism, my friend.
The point is, well, what would you say is the most overrated virtue?
Honesty?
I'd say faith. I know where you're coming. I hear that. I can work with that, but I think faith, don't you? Faith. Why just take anything on faith? Why say, I'd like this person to do my thinking for me? Why ever do that? Why not say, the one thing that makes me human is I can do my own?
Well, I guess we can agree to disagree on her, because to me she walked the...
We don't need a guru, we don't need a princess, we don't need a president who promises leadership, blah, blah, all this nonsense. We have our own faculties.
All right, so we disagree on Mother Teresa, but Clinton, I think we're in complete concurrent on. You can wade into him, because it doesn't get more full of shit than that in my book. I mean, Well, I read your last Vanity Fair article.
You were unfair. You said that he's a liar. I mean, everyone lies about rape. Right? A gentleman is expected to lie about rape. Give the guy a break. We all lie about rape. We all lie about bombing Sudan when Monica Lewinsky and killing innocent people in Africa. On the day Monica Lewinsky comes to the grand jury, we all say we had to bomb that place anyway. We all do that, don't we? See how he's dragged everyone's level down. Everyone now thinks he's the average guy. A fucking rapist, a war criminal, and a pathological liar. And, yeah, people then say, you can't fool me, I'm a wised-up American. I'll sit in my kitchen, and if anyone rings and says, do I have an approval rating, I'll give them one. To show how smart I am, to show how skeptical I am, to show how you can't fool me. Doesn't it make you want to bring up everything you have ever even thought about eating?
I just want you to call me in 6 weeks and tell me what it feels like to be gang audited. Because,
my life is an open book.
Oh, man, we've got a phone call for you. It's line 7. It's Bill from Little Rock. No, it's easy. There we go.
No, he always calls collect. I know if it was him.
We've got line 7. We've got Chella from Montgomery, Alabama. Chella.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
okay, I'm good.
Now, what do you think of Chris's skepticism? I consider myself a skeptic. I consider Chris the Mark McGuire of skeptics. They're auctioning off that last round at Sotheby's.
I think Chris is on the spot. In fact, here's my question.
Okay.
To what extent is skepticism a natural result of extensive knowledge, of just knowing this shit about people?
Oh, well.
You know, that's the hippest call out of Montgomery ever. We usually get calls out of Montgomery on a party line.
No, in Montgomery they make more skepticism than they can consume locally, I think you'll find.
But Clinton has brought the whole thing down, right?
People say, I wish there was more skepticism. There isn't. There's quite a lot of cynicism. People say, oh, well, what can you do? Or they're all the same, or this kind of thing. Or they all do it, so that a guy like Clinton, who is by any standards really exceptional as a liar and as a crook, and as a bully, walks, because people think, well, we all do that. I don't know anyone who's done half the things he did. You know, you're supposed to lie, they say, to protect the woman. You know, everyone lies about adultery. He doesn't lie to protect the woman or his family. He lies to trash the women, to libel them and slander them when he's done with them, and to leave his family out to dry. This is not what everybody does. Do you know anyone who does that? We don't know people who do this.
I agree with you. He's a very mean-spirited guy.
He's a very mean guy indeed, mean as a snake. And so people who think, I do think your show is rough on him in the wrong way, because you make it sound as if he's a guy who loves women too much and can't help himself. If that was true, fine, but you're building him up by saying that. He's a scumbag. He's mean to these women. He treats them cruel, and then he lies and trashes them. This is unpleasant to watch.
Yeah, but I'm doing I'm doing a comedy show, Chris. I can't come out here every week.
It would be a sad world if we couldn't have a laugh. I mean,
listen, you're in this seat. I'm over in 6 weeks. You know, I mean, I can't turn it into Scared Straight, where I get in kids' faces. You don't ever want to come in here. I'll fuck you in the ass for a pack of Luckies.
Well, that's what I said. I saw you had to go at James Carville the other day.
Carville, I'm not a fan.
I said about Carville that he hasn't spoken to me since I said he looked like the product of the love scene in Deliverance. You've got to have a laugh. I agree with you about that. But still, you mustn't boost the guy. This is a guy, the president, who has apparently no confidence he can get laid on his own merits. He humps the help and then he dumps on them. This is not sweet. This is not sweet.
I got to do the news. Kick back with your scotch, have a ciggy. I'll be right back, Mr. Hitchens.
Now look at how religion protects its image. Hitchens points out figures like Mother Teresa, presented as pure compassion, but the facts tell a different story. She took money from corrupt leaders like the Duvalier regime and defended them publicly. At the same time, she taught that suffering is a gift from God. That's dangerous. It tells poor and sick people to accept pain instead of fixing it. There are people around the world helping others without religion, without ideology, just based on human empathy. They don't need belief in God to do good.
Come back to more on Henry Kissinger. Possibly there's so much to talk about. I want to move on to Mother Teresa.
Yes.
You have a piece in here that was in The Nation in April of 1992, and you call this the Ghoul of Calcutta?
Mm-hmm.
Mother Teresa?
Mother Teresa, the Ghoul of Calcutta. Yeah. I always had a real doubt in my mind as to whether there really was this saintly person. And if you ask people why do they think Mother Teresa is so great, they'll always say, well, isn't it true that she spends her time always, you know, helping out the poor of Calcutta? But if they really push them, they don't know anything about her at all. They just take it on faith, as saints always are taken. So I went to Calcutta, actually for another reason. I thought, well, I'm there, I'll go and look her up. And I was rather appalled by what I found. I mean, she showed me around her mission, and she announced that the purpose of the mission was to run a campaign in Calcutta, in Bengal, against abortion and contraception. Now, as it happens, I have my doubts about abortion. I'm very squeamish on the subject, but one thing that Calcutta definitely does not need is a campaign waged by an Albanian Catholic missionary against the limitation of the population. And it rather, to me, spoiled the effect of her charitable work, that she was saying, actually, this is not charity, it's religious propaganda. And I think the Vatican policy on population control is calamitous. So that aroused my curiosity anyway. It had been a bit of a disappointment meeting her there. And I didn't like her manners, actually, particularly either, as she went around among, the poor. Then I found her turning up as the defender of the Duvalier family in Haiti, saying how lovely they were and how gentle and beautiful. Then I found her turning up as Charles Keating's personal best friend in the Lincoln Savings and Loan scandal, taking a lot of money from him for a private plane, giving him blessings and crucifixes in return. Then I found her turning up in Albania, where she's a supporter of a very extreme right nationalist party, and quite a few other such things. And I thought, A, I don't like any of these things, singly or together. And second, when does she ever get time for the poor of Calcutta? She's forever on some scumbag's Learjet going around cashing in on everyone else's belief that she's a saint. And I think this is probably how medieval religion was worked.
But let's say,
as a con, people just, you know, you took the faithful as credulous and you reckoned that they would believe whatever you said.
Let me just take her side for purpose of discussion. Let's say that she went to the Duvalier family and got money, went to Charles Keating and got money, and moved it over to the poor. Wouldn't that be charity? And
I don't think it's necessary for someone who is supposedly consecrated to the mission of charity and who's world famous for it to ever have to beg for money. If she ever wanted it, she knows where to go for it. People would open their pockets and I think their hearts. No, the fact is, I don't even know if she got any money from the Duvaliers. What she was doing was defending them as a dynasty in Haiti, and everyone knows what the record of the Duvalier family is in Haiti. She did get money from Keating, and I actually asked in my piece, would anyone care to say that they know where it's gone? Because she must have known, or should have known, that that money doesn't belong to Keating and doesn't belong to her. It's stolen money. But okay, let her say. But the fact is, she was giving him in return various kinds of absolution in his campaigns, and I think this is because he started off life as a morals cop. He was another of the prohibitionists. He began his career as an anti-pornography poser. She's evidently, it seems to me, on call for people, dubious characters of this kind. I just thought it was worth pointing out. I can't tell you the mail I got about it. I mean, if you touch the idea of sainthood, especially in this country, people feel you've taken something from them personally. And I'm fascinated because, of course, we like to look down on other religious beliefs as being tribal and superstitious. Never dare criticize our own.
Do you regret any of the targets you chose? Who needs to attack Mother Teresa?
It was very important to attack Mother Teresa.
Why?
Well, for the same reason that people admire her, which is you have to care about the millions of people who are stricken by millennial poverty. I mean, poverty of the sort that's almost impossible to escape from. That was her pretended concern. Now, as it happens,
it wasn't her fault.
I'll put it, no, by no means. Well, you say that, but
it wasn't her fault that people were in poverty.
Not in the first place. But as it happens, I could go on a length about this, but summarize it in one statement, which I think is pretty hard to refute. The best known cure for poverty we've come up with is something called the empowerment of women. If you give women control over their cycle of reproduction, you don't keep them chained to an animal cycle of annual pregnancy and so forth, and you give them, if you can add to that by throwing in a handful of seeds or some credit, you've done very well. Nowhere where that's tried does it not work. You'll see, in an instant, Mother Teresa spent her entire life campaigning against that. She thought that contraception and abortion were morally equivalent and that abortion was murder. Now, that's not what Calcutta needs, and I think her teachings and preachings were actually counter to the cause that she's supposed to represent. So I thought it was very important to point that out.
Here's where the contradiction gets worse. People call someone a saint without even knowing what they actually did. It's blind trust. No investigation, no questions. Hitchens points out that Mother Teresa didn't just help the poor. She pushed religious rules that made their situation worse. She actively opposed contraception, even though data shows that giving women control over reproduction is one of the most effective ways to reduce poverty. That's backed by global studies. When women have access to education and birth control, poverty drops fast. That's measurable. So what happens when religion blocks that? It keeps people stuck. It turns suffering into something to accept instead of something to solve. That's the problem. Belief is being placed above real-world results. And when that happens, people don't get helped. They stay trapped. So here's the real question. If there's documented evidence of hypocrisy, corruption, and harm tied to these figures, why does religion still honor and protect them? Why are people still told to trust them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if this made you think, like the video and subscribe for more.